It's me again. Today is actually, is it still today? No, it's still today. Yeah, of course it's still today, but today is October 20th, and every year I can never remember what happened on this day. I can't remember a lot of things before that day. Well, anyway, today is the 42nd anniversary of my uncle David Cross getting shot in my cousin's, well, still my cousin's yard right next to my house. In 1979, October 20th, 1979, my uncle David Cross was coming on the highway, police chased him in his yard, and shot him in front of 24 of us. The police officer got off. We all know the story. And it's just, I tell everybody, it, I guess, what is it, 40, I guess 42 years later, one, I'm surprised like, he died at the age of 28. I'm almost 50. That is just, like, mind-boggling. That it's 42 years later. There was 24 of us that got shot, and it screwed up a whole bunch of people. Like it changes you. You watch somebody go blown away. I was about, I'm guessing, 10 feet away. I don't remember much of my childhood before that. I remember some things from pictures and stuff. A lot of things have come back since. Not a lot, but a lot of things I was like, hey, I don't remember that. People tell me stuff like, hey, you remember this? And I'm like, nope, I have no idea. And it's just like, I guess it's all you can do is reflect on it. I mean, I don't dwell on it, but I mean, it's one of those things that I can honestly say is so clearly etched in my mind that I remember I remember the trees and where the cop car was parked, and the darkness and my grandmother's porch, and then there was a long driveway, and I remember the old rickety porch and the house, and I remember his big red car. And I remember the next day we were searching for, I don't know if it was the next day or a couple of days later, we were searching for the evidence, and then apparently it all disappeared in court. And I remember the big driveway and my grandmother's house, and like there's things I remember before that we were playing those where he got shot, my grandmother's house. It was kind of behind the house. There was a gas station and maybe 100 yards over. We were playing in a sandbox, and I remember it was getting late, and I don't honestly I don't remember what the hell time of day it was either. I don't know if I think it was just before like dusk. We heard police cars and saw lights and stuff, and I remember playing with toys in the sandbox, and I remember running to see what was happening. I remember my father like, get back, get back. The cop pulled out a gun on my mother. I think he almost shot her. I remember people everywhere screaming, David, and yelling. It's like this. It's not a nightmare. I mean, it is technically to some people a nightmare, or it would be, but it doesn't like. When I think back, it doesn't scare me. I mean, it's a fucking sickening. Like, I wish I could. To this day, I wish I could shoot the motherfucker. But like you go back and it's just this vivid, clear impression of what happened, and it's like 42 years later. I still can't remember October 20th that happened. I always hear from my cousin Lane or my cousin like, "Hey, you remember David? Man, imagine that 40 years or 41 or 20 years, 25 years." Or I just completely forget and realize 2 weeks later. But the thing is that it it changed people back then. I when I was in the fire department, we did a class on PTSD, and I said, you know what? This sounds like half people in my family for the last fucking 20 something years. And you realize, like, holy shit, like, I think we were all living proof of PTSD. Like, it just, hey, back in the 80s, we didn't call it PTSD, we called it crazy ass childhood. Like, we did some stupid shit, angry teenagers and stuff. And it messes with you and does things to your mind. I can't say I'm like, as screwed up as a crack addict might be, but it does, it took a piece of it. It destroyed. I would say, safe to say, it destroyed a piece of each and every person that witnessed it, and it destroyed a piece of everyone's childhood from then on. Like our family, I told my aunt Linda one time, was her husband, that it was like everybody was like, oh, family kind of happy. You weren't like, it was almost perfect, but it was like everybody was like, yeah, and all of a sudden it just went to shit. Like we would do stuff and go places, and it was like, yeah. And after that, I don't have like it was like happy David was and stuff. Then all of a sudden it was like boom. It was like there was years and years of like just like something changed, the dynamic changed. And even in the, I noticed it in the fire hall, like when in the last 25 some years, it's, I was able to go to some of the most horrible shit in the fire hall and be like, whatever, fuck, like, that didn't bother me. It just took a piece of that, like, hey, oh, the guy's dead on the side of the road. Oh well, I mean, and it clicked that whatever happened to me then, it destroyed one thing and it helped me in another way. I was able to help people by using that little thing. And because a lot of people can't handle it. I remember one person, we were doing a live burn, and I don't remember who it was, but I specifically remember this person. We were sitting in the building ready to burn on the floor. David lit the fire, the smoke started tumbling, and we seen this person for weeks at training. They were a new rookie coming in, and smoke hit the floor. All right, okay, put it out. Everybody crawl out. No usual live burn training. Just go back in, go back out, and you just practice because you get used to. I mean, I don't think you ever really get used to it. And then we never saw the person again. And I remember bumping into some previous firemen. And since you live in a small town, it's it's not easy because everybody in this town, around the reserve here, everybody's related to everybody. We know each other. People grow up with everybody. Like you stay in the same grades of people, and you just know everybody. There's like nobody can move in. You don't get some weirdo from Texas moving in next door to you because that's like grandmas and aunts and cousins, whatever. Or like you got a new development area, but you know everybody in the area. And so I remember him telling me, he says, I had to quit because I was having nightmares because back in the day, people were bringing home, they were bringing auntie, uncle, cousin, brother, sister, drunk driver, whatever, in the ambulance. And I never want to do ambulance because I just don't have the shit for ambulance. Like I don't have the thing. So, and you gotta have some fucking, mental balls when it comes to doing ambulance. And if anybody on the fire department watches, I salute all the ambulance crew because they put up with a lot of shit. They get, I guess I could say they get burned out a lot. They're fucking a million shifts. They're always, bringing a hospital, and it's a mental. After a while, it takes a toll because for years, I'm sure we could still use a ton of EMTs because it's just they cycle through and they get burned out, and after so many years, you can't. It's like fire department. There's not many people that last 20, 30 years because it's there's tons of training. But to get back to, I mean, my uncle, I said, I think back these days and I think, what would we have, I remember my mother telling me years ago that I went to see a shrink and I don't know what the hell, I think it was grade 1, 2, or 3. I have zero recollection of ever seeing a shrink in my life. I have no clue. I remember a person in my town like, hey, you remember in school when we used to ride the little bikes? And she says, I remember one time you were so sweet, you gave me the bike. And I'm like, I don't remember. I don't even know. I didn't even know you were in my class. Like to this day, I don't know who was in kindergarten. I don't remember who was in grade 1. I don't remember who was in grade 2. I don't remember who was grade 3. I have no clue who the hell was in grade 4. Grade 5 and 6, I have a clue. And the only reason why I do know is because of pictures. And then I don't have a lot of pictures because our house burned down in 84 right to the ground, and I think we lost a lot of pictures. We had a lot of them. But I remember that day when David died. It was just like the other thing I'll never forget is the funeral. Walking from my aunt's house. I don't know if we walked. I remember. I think we were walking, and I remember. I remember he was laid out. He had a vest on. I think a blue shirt. Like it was like 70s-ish. I don't know. And I was young, and I remember his hands were wired together. It was a metal wire, and I could never figure out why. And it was cold, and it was in the living room of my aunt's house, and it was just all surreal. Like we couldn't like figure out why the hell is he in a casket. And they kept. I remember later on, somebody was mentioning they kept touching him, and they could feel the marks on him when he did autopsy. And I was like, and then I think back, I'm like, I remember that. I remember like people going there and touching him. And I remember, I remember his red sweater that I guess they couldn't figure out how many bullet holes because it's just a sweater. It's a woolen sweater. And he was an interesting guy. I didn't know him very well, And you know, when you look up to people when you're young, like you don't know anything about them, they could be the worst person in the world. But when they're like kid awesome, like he built us a A-frame house. He did all kinds of like he had. I remember goats got loose. There was rabbits. You know, he went deer hunting and moose hunting, and he used to always be like, he'd be eating chips. Like, hey, can I try that? I never tried it before. And it's like all that just disappeared, and you wonder, wonder his whole life. Like, I remember being angry for years and years. Like, whatever. Like, and I find that it took me many years of my life to go from being super serious, angry, and not knowing what the hell I want with people, and just like, you know, going down to bars and getting the bar brawls and trying to avoid bar brawls that are out of hand and stuff. It's just it's like trying to not go down this road, but trying to stay on this road. And nobody's perfect. I can't, but I mean, it's just screwed up a lot of people. And I don't know if I don't know. It's just weird. 42 years. And it was like, I remember somebody was like, years ago, was like, well, it wasn't, the greatest person. I said, you know what? When you're 7 years old, you got an uncle who, like, I remember we used to go driving in the car, and he had those big old Buicks in the 70s. Like, you could fit, like, I don't know, probably an entire family in the trunk and still have room to put a kitchen table in there. And he'd drive down the road, like, let's go pick apples. And you ever went out picking? You just drive down the road. Hey, there's an apple field. And you'd be like, hold on, guys. Got a potato sack, go in the field, and come back with a whole freaking bag of apples. And stop at the chip stand. And he'd get a salt shaker and eat apples with salt on it. He used to eat raw onion. Like, he used to bite onion. I remember biting onion. And it was like, holy shit. It was like weird things, but it was a time of life where it's almost like the show The Wonder Years. Like, it was just like the way they narrate, like the greatest time of your life, till you realize like this person's an asshole, whatever. But I mean, to us, he was good to us, and I don't know what he did in his personal life, and I don't really care. But that memory there is just of us being a kid, and he was like the best thing in the world. And then when he died, it just went to shit. Like, I still have mother and father and aunts and uncles, and my grandfather, I think, passed away. Like, I think it was 4 years later, middle '80s, and my cousin passed away 2 years after that. And it was just like it wasn't the same. We'd always be like, wonder what David. And he's to this day he's still in my memory. Every time I mean, actually during 1998, like the what happened and the complete hatred for police kind of spilled over later in life. And I remember in the '90s, like when the Oka crisis was here, we got chased by tanks and cops and all this stuff. And nobody cared. It was like, oh, you're pointing a gun at us? Shoot me then. You already shot my uncle. My cousin after that got chased into, oh, well, not my cousin. Actually, yeah, him too, my cousin. A former friend of mine's father named Earl. He got chased into my mother's yard by the police. And we told him, don't even do it. Don't chase him in there and don't be go running after him with a gun. His cousin got shot in the yard right over there. And you shoot him, there's going to be a bigger problem. And it was like, it put this, instilled in you that guns, oh, I have guns. Big deal. And it just, it burned in you, like even 1990, it burned it even in you even more that, okay, they have guns and they come after you with guns, but you can't be afraid of them. And it doesn't, just to this day, it doesn't bother me. Pull a weapon in front of me, yeah, so what? You have a gun. What do you fucking do? I mean, if you shoot me, you shoot me. Nothing I can do about it. But it doesn't like, people like freak out and whatever. It did a lot of strange things to family members, and I'm not going to mention what it did to everyone else because that's their business, not mine. But I feel like as a dynamic, I remember when I talked to my aunt, my uncle David's wife, and it was just like, what the hell? It just destroyed the whole little zing that was going on. It was like nothing was really that much fun anymore. At least that's the way it seems. We still had, I'm assuming we still had fun back then. Like, we didn't, it wasn't boring. Like, at a 20-year spurt of boredom where we just sat in a room right then. But it was just like things changed. Everybody changed, and people still had fun. But it was just David wasn't there. David wasn't there to enjoy stuff. So yeah, October 20th is a day of just fucking weirdness. I told my wife, I said it fucking changed me for for good. And there's still things that, are slowly like ticking back. Like last week, I remembered something like, holy shit, I don't, 30 years ago, I remember that, like that happened. And like, it just erased the whole part of your mind. So now that I got 4 kids, I'm like, you think I want my kids to see that shit? I even wonder how people, what do you call it, join a profession such as the fire department, and like I know where I got the balls to go there and just look at people who are mangled and smashed to pieces, and just, hey, I got to go there and cut a door open. It's what we were trained for, and it still doesn't bother me. But for someone else who hasn't seen, it hasn't had some start, I guess you either love. It's like in the fire department. I always say you're a select few kind of crazy. While everyone's running out of the building, you're all trying to run there and put it out. And there's a million fucking things that go wrong. And it's like just a couple of days ago, they bunch of firefighters on the river trying to rescue some people in a boat. The boat capsized. They rescued all the people, and one firefighter drowned. And I salute that person, because it could be me one of these days, or it could have been me. It could have been a lot of people. And you have to have the balls to go out there and say, you know what, I'm going to risk my life to save a couple of yous, and I could, and the poor guy drowned in the fucking river. It's fucking sad. And I noticed a long video, and I don't want to like bore you, but then again, some of you watch 3 hour, what do you call it, chat sessions, have 3 hour live videos, but it's, and I'm sure there's other people on other channels that have gone through wars and seen murders and had, people don't know, and it doesn't, I don't mean to, what is it, say my trauma is any worse. To me, trauma is trauma, whether it's just, there is no level of good or bad or whatever. It's just, this is what happened to me, and I'm just telling you the story. I usually write some blurb about how I forget it, or write some, but now that I have this platform, you could see my ugly mug and my what's left of my hair up here. 42 years later, like 42 years. It's not a very big amount of time in human history. We're like a freaking pinprick. And it's crazy, because he died at the age of 28 years old. 26, I joined the military, and I was in university from, I think, 18, 19, till I was 20 something. Joined the military, went traveling places, and he never got to do that. And I know why people get pissed off, because the cops, there's 2 of them in a car that could have, And to this day, we say, we still think that those 2 cops are lucky he didn't come out with a rifle. And I said, maybe he should have come with a rifle, blew them both away, because he'd probably be out of jail by now. And some of the things that the cops did and the courts did back then are just no different than what happens today. All the little bullshit like, oh, well, I think my mother said they told the court that he was only shot once. And they were like, well, why is there a picture of him with 3 bullet holes through him? Just stuff like that. And I'm like, it's just, and then they try to like make it look like he's the bad guy. Like, you know what, you just got shot. How come, but it's politics. And it changes you. And it changed me, and it also helped me. Like I said, it helped me when I remember going to a fire scene, and I'm on the side of the road, and there's a guy in there screaming and yelling, and I'm holding the door, and the cop's holding a flashlight, and the cop's like, ah! He's all freaking out, there's blood coming out, and he's like, I don't know how the hell you can do this. And I'm like, do what? I'm holding the door open. We got shit to do, and you don't have time to worry about, oh, poor them. When you do obviously worry about poor them, but you're just like, I'm there to do a fucking job. The ambulance crew is going to take them. They're going to do the next job. There's like one job for me, one job for them. There's a road cone guy, the cops. Everybody does it, and it's a little kind of organized, unorganized chaos for a few minutes, and it's over with. And you clean up the mess, go home, and I used to always say, I still say, like, I'm not the greatest fireman. I haven't been in the fire hall in a year or 2 thanks to this bullshit going around. I'm getting older. I feel like I'm getting weaker and stuff. I haven't done a lot of shit. I haven't exercised really. I'm a lazy ass. But what was one of the hardest things about being a fire department, besides like 4 o'clock in the morning, putting a freaking building out till 6 or 8 in the morning, minus 17. I remember my bunker gear's frozen. I think the hardest thing is when someone's house is burned down, you're going home to sleep. To me, and I've always said that, because I'm going back to bed and you're just hoping that no one else's house burned down. And I think someone's house burned down like right after Christmas. It was terrible. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Christmas. I'm not, all this religious stuff and whatever. But you know what? It's the holidays, and you don't want anybody's house to burn down. My house burned down. I didn't become a fireman because my house burned down either. My brother was a fireman before me, I think for 9 or 10 years, and he's like, "Hey, we need somebody to join." I'm like, "I don't know. I don't know about firemen." I was all scared. I joined, and then I stuck around. I don't worry about the politics people say. I go there, I do the training, I try to do the job, and hey, if I do it right, I do it right. So, and you see a lot of shit. Anyway, this is a long video, probably the longest video I ever upload. It's not getting any editing, and that's the way it's going to get uploaded. Thanks for watching. I'll probably do some of these sessions once in a while and tell you stories in between. Thanks for watching.